Have you ever noticed that in almost every group, one person naturally stands out? Not because they're the loudest, not because they're the strongest, and not even because they hold the highest position. Yet somehow, when uncertainty fills the room, everyone's eyes quietly turn toward them. When a difficult decision has to be made, people instinctively wait to hear what they think. And when they begin to speak, others listen. Why does this happen? Are some people truly born to lead? Or is leadership simply a skill that anyone can learn? The answer, according to psychology, is fascinating. Research suggests that while leadership can absolutely be developed, some people seem to possess certain psychological traits from an early age that naturally draw others toward them. These traits don't guarantee they'll become great leaders, but they can give them a head start. Today, we're going to explore the psychology behind people who seem born to lead, and why their behavior is often misunderstood. Let's begin with something that surprises many people. The strongest leaders aren't usually the people trying the hardest to become leaders. Think about your school days. There was probably that one student everyone naturally followed. Not because they demanded attention, but because they made others feel confident. They didn't need to announce themselves. Their presence alone created a sense of direction. Psychologists call this social influence. People naturally look for individuals who appear calm, capable, and emotionally steady, especially during uncertainty. Leadership begins long before someone receives a title. It begins with trust, and trust is earned through behavior, not authority. One of the first signs of a natural leader is emotional stability. Imagine two people facing the exact same crisis. One immediately panics, raises their voice, and blames everyone around them. The other takes a deep breath, listens carefully, and starts thinking about solutions instead of problems. Which person would you choose to follow? The answer is obvious. Our brains are wired to seek safety. When someone remains calm during chaos, they unconsciously signal that the situation can be managed. Psychologists often describe this as emotional regulation, the ability to manage your emotions without letting them control your decisions. Natural leaders aren't fearless. They simply don't let fear become contagious. Instead, they spread confidence. Another trait is something far less obvious. They know how to listen. Many people assume leadership means talking more than everyone else. In reality, some of history's most respected leaders were exceptional listeners. Why? Because listening creates understanding. When people feel heard, they become more willing to cooperate. A natural leader isn't constantly thinking about what to say next. They're trying to understand what others actually mean. This makes people feel respected, and respect creates influence. Now, here's something that psychology has discovered over and over again. People don't follow perfection, they follow authenticity. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they aren't flawless. They've made mistakes, they've failed, they've struggled. But they were honest about it. Authenticity builds trust because our brains are surprisingly good at detecting when someone is pretending. When a leader admits they don't have all the answers, people often trust them even more. Confidence doesn't mean pretending to know everything, it means being secure enough to keep learning. Another characteristic that separates natural leaders is responsibility. Have you noticed how some people always look for someone to blame? The project failed because of them. We lost because nobody helped. It's not my fault. Natural leaders think differently. Even when circumstances aren't entirely their fault, they ask a different question. What can I do to improve this? Psychologists call this having an internal locus of control. Instead of believing life simply happens to them, they believe their actions matter. This mindset creates resilience. And resilience inspires others. Here's another fascinating behavior. Natural leaders often make other people feel important. Think about the difference. Some people walk into a room hoping everyone notices them. Natural leaders often walk into a room noticing everyone else. They remember names. They ask meaningful questions. They celebrate other people's successes. They encourage quiet voices to speak. Ironically, people who focus less on being admired often become the most admired, because everyone enjoys being around someone who genuinely values them. Leadership isn't about standing above people. It's about helping people stand taller. Now let's talk about one of the biggest myths. Many people believe leaders are born extroverts. Psychology says that's not necessarily true. While some leaders are outgoing, many successful leaders are surprisingly quiet. What matters isn't how much someone talks. It's whether people believe what they say. Some of the most influential leaders in business, science, and history weren't the loudest person in the room. They simply spoke with clarity, purpose, and sincerity. Influence comes from credibility, not volume. There's another quality that often appears early in life: curiosity. Natural leaders ask questions that others don't. Instead of accepting things the way they've always been, they wonder if there's a better way. This curiosity fuels creativity. It also helps them adapt. Psychologists consistently find that adaptability is one of the strongest predictors of effective leadership. The world changes. Problems change. People change. Leaders who refuse to change eventually lose influence. The best leaders remain students for life. They never stop learning. Here's something even more interesting. Natural leaders tend to think beyond themselves. While many people focus on immediate rewards, leaders often think about long-term consequences. They're willing to sacrifice today's comfort for tomorrow's success. This ability is closely connected to self-control, one of the most researched psychological traits linked to achievement. Whether it's resisting impulsive decisions, managing emotions, or staying focused during setbacks, self-control helps leaders remain consistent when others lose motivation. Consistency builds trust, and trust builds leadership. But here's the truth that many people don't realize. Being naturally inclined to lead doesn't automatically make someone a great leader. History is full of charismatic people who misused their influence. Leadership isn't just about attracting followers, it's about using influence responsibly. Real leadership requires empathy, integrity, humility, and the courage to put the group's success ahead of personal recognition. Without these qualities, influence becomes manipulation, and eventually people stop following. So, are people really born to lead? Psychology suggests that some individuals may begin life with personality traits that make leadership come more naturally. They may be more emotionally stable, more curious, more resilient, or more comfortable taking responsibility. But those traits are only the foundation. Leadership itself is built through experience, self-awareness, learning from failure, and choosing to grow every single day. In other words, natural potential may open the first door. Character determines how far someone walks through it. So if you've ever looked at someone and thought they were born to be a leader, remember this: you aren't seeing one magical quality. You're seeing years of small psychological habits repeated consistently. The calmness during chaos, the willingness to listen, the courage to take responsibility, the ability to make others feel valued, the commitment to keep learning. These are the behaviors that quietly earn trust. And in the end, trust is the foundation of every great leader. Because people rarely follow the person who demands the most attention. They follow the person who gives them the most confidence. And perhaps that's what being born to lead really means.